I'm thinking about it. Let it go, it'll all fix itself. I'm thinking about it. Let it go, let it go. I'm thinking about it. Let it go, it'll all fix itself. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. There's a really good thing right in front of my eyes. Right in front of my eyes. Your eyes. There's a really good thing right in front of my eyes. Right in front of my eyes. Oh, 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 oh. I'm thinking about it. Let it go, it'll all fix itself. I'm thinking about it. Let it go, let it go. I'm thinking about it. Let it go, it'll all fix itself. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. Let it go, it'll all fix itself. I'm thinking about it. Let it go, oh, I'm thinking about it. Let it go, it'll all fix itself. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it.
Tell me, is it you that I should give my heart to? Tell me right now so I know that it's you. And it feels so right. I don't want you out of my sight. Long as you need me, I need you. Are you right one for me? Can you be my everything? My forever fling. I'm talking about it. Something in the air has got me falling in love and I'm ready. Falling for your love. I wanna be the one you love. Oh, what's love got to do that? What's love but a second-hand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? hoping that I don't have your heart. That may make things hard. I don't know what I might do. 'Cause just when I think we're close, then I'm like, I don't know. Tell me if you really are. Are you right one for me? Can you be my everything? My forever fling. I'm talking about it. Something in the air got me falling in love and I'm ready. Falling for your love. I wanna be the one you love.
I think we're close to that. I think you ask any player, he will say the same. I think it's a general opinion of the players, and if it keeps this way, it will be a moment that we have no other option. But let's see, I don't know. It's something that worries us because we are the guys that suffer.
So when you talk about performance, we play like already 60 games in the year. You have the Euro, you have the World Cup, we have now the National League. You have so many competition, and we are happy to play, but when it's too much, it's too much. We have to recover. We have to stay relaxed. If people want to have quality in the game, if they just want to see some games to see on the TV, of course we're gonna play. But if they want to see quality game, to see emotion, to see this type of thing, that's make the beauty of the football too. I think we have to respect the healthy of the players.
Sometimes nobody asks the players what they think about adding more games, so maybe our opinion doesn't matter, but everybody knows what we think about that, having more games. Everybody is tired of that.
Estoy de acuerdo en todo lo que ha dicho. Cada año tenemos más partido, menos tiempo de descanso, y al final no es falta de decirle. Creo que venimos de 3, 4, incluso más años diciéndole, nadie nos hace caso. Así que sí, va a llegar un momento donde vamos a tener que ir a la huelga, porque es la única manera de hacer nuestra voz entendible para los que deciden.
We are not robots, so I think we just definitely have to looking after that and reduce the game definitely, and can play better. Quality of game is definitely, I think this is should be the aim.
Yo sé que la PFA tuvimos una reunión a principio de temporada sobre los calendarios. Sabemos que es un calendario muy apretado, sé que el sindicato también, entonces nosotros confiamos en ellos completamente, de que ellos buscan nuestros intereses, son ellos los que nos están cuidando y están haciendo todo lo posible para poder ayudarnos en ese sentido. Ahora mismo el calendario es el que es, hay que tirar para adelante y hay que jugar a fútbol, entonces ya lo hemos hablado muchas veces, sabemos que el calendario es el que es y es muy congestionado, pero bueno, es nuestro trabajo y hay que dar el 100% siempre.
Peut-être cette année ça va aller, mais c'est l'année prochaine qui va être un problème. Je pense qu'il y a déjà des PFA et des autres PFA dans des autres pays, ils ont essayé de trouver des solutions, mais le problème c'est que l'UEFA, le FIFA, il fait des matchs en plus et on peut essayer de dire quelque chose, mais ouais, on n'a pas trouvé une solution et ils s'en foutent, c'est l'argent qui parle.
It's always good to hear first from the players, from those who make the game, create the spectacle. Those were just a few snapshots of those players who actually have decided to speak up in recent weeks. We could have taken many more. Welcome to the press conference by European leagues, FIFA Europe and La Liga. My name is Alexander. I'm Director Policy at FIFPro, and I have the pleasure to lead through the press conference today. Before we start, let me maybe say a few remarks. I think it's fair to say that a good part of European history can also be told through a legal perspective. The decisions by the courts, the decisions by the European Commission, by the European institutions, all of them together tell a story of not just the conversations we have in our societies at a time, be them social or economic, but they also tell something about our values and ultimately about our continent and about the European Union. Sports has certainly been no stranger in this conversation, specifically also not professional football. We have definitely acted in that context and have added our own chapters in this legal landscape. Just the past 12 months have probably seen a range of decisions by the courts in European Super League, the ISU decisions, and just about a week ago in Diarra. So what has happened this morning when the parties to this press conference submitted a legal complaint to the European Commission, this is not just also another chapter in this context, but let me tell you, it is also somewhat unprecedented. It is in fact the first time that the social partners of the professional football sector, the employers, the employees, the leagues and the player unions have felt compelled to take legal action together. So we would like to already thank all of you for having shown an interest in this case, for attending our press conference. Specifically, we would like to thank representatives of the European Commission, the Member States, the European Parliament, media, the stakeholders in the football sector, and certainly also the academic community. With regards to the structure of today's press conference, let me give you a couple of housekeeping remarks. First of all, many of the speakers will intervene in their native language, so you will find translation available in French, Spanish and Italian, and of course English. The translation devices, I think, are in your seats. With regards to the interventions by the speakers, we will have 3 representatives from the union side and 3 representatives from the league side with us to intervene on behalf of this coalition. We have from the player union side David Terrier, the president of UNFP and FIFPro Europe. We have Mathieu Moreuil, the director international relations of the English Premier League and board member of the European leagues. We have Christopher Watzauk from the Norwegian Players Union NISO, the executive president. We have Javier Tebas, the president of La Liga. We have Umberto Calgano, the president of AIC, the Players Union in Italy. And last but not least, we have the host in this capital in Belgium. We have Lorin Paris from the Belgium Pro League. Before we start with the interventions by these speakers, we will have another short video which will just explain how we have gotten to this point in a brief summary. After the interventions by the speakers, we will be joined by our outside legal counsel from Garrides, Mark and Alfonso, who will give a brief technical update on the legal case. And there will be an informal meeting to answer questions in this regard on the technicalities of the case after the conclusion of the press conference. Before or after the interventions by Mark and Alfonso, we will open for questions and answers from the floor, and we'll conclude the press conference afterwards. Some of the speakers will be available for interviews after that. So now, just before we're starting with the speakers, a brief clip to set the scene.
How did we get here? And why are European leagues and FIFA Pro Europe filing a complaint against FIFA? European football faces an urgent threat, one that harms the health of its players and the viability of its national leagues. FIFA, the world governing body, controls the international match calendar. It abuses this power to expand its own competitions and increase its revenues. This means more international matches in more international competitions. It pushes the players to their physical and mental limits. It puts a squeeze on national leagues, drains their resources, and devalues their competitions. Player unions repeatedly warned of the risks to players' health, and FIFA refused to listen. Professional leagues warned how FIFA's new Club World Cup would further concentrate wealth among a few teams, and FIFA refused to listen. In 2023, FIFA announced a task force on player welfare, but it never invited the players or their unions. In fact, it never appointed anyone. And in the end, it never met, not even once. Because FIFA is not listening. In a clear breach of its obligations under European law, FIFA has abused its dominant position and put the future of our sport at risk. We cannot accept this and have decided to act.
Thank you. And without further ado, I will pass the floor over to David Terrier, the president of UNFP and FIFA Pro Europe. David, please.
In French, sorry, it's much easier for me. And we are in Bruxelles, that I think French is good. Déjà, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Vraiment, merci d'être venus. Merci de prendre votre temps pour un sujet qui est important pour nous, du côté des joueurs, mais pas seulement. Ça ne doit pas être aujourd'hui des discours politiques, mais des discours importants pour le futur de notre football, que ce soit au niveau européen, mais également au niveau mondial. Et je dois dire que je suis très fier aujourd'hui de pouvoir être ici à vos côtés, mais surtout avec nos amis, nos compagnons, ceux qui ont fait en sorte de développer une industrie au niveau européen, mais qui allait plus loin à travers la solidarité au niveau mondial, qui est peut-être une des industries les plus participatives, les plus collaboratives qu'il y a eu jusqu'à maintenant. Et ce, grâce à ceux qui sont autour de la table aujourd'hui, qui représentent les employés du football, qui sont les joueurs de foot, mais également les employeurs, qui sont les ligues. Et je pense qu'il était important qu'on se réunisse, qu'on soit ensemble, qu'on arrive à discuter ensemble. Et je peux vous dire, on a des fois des divergences. Nous n'avons pas toujours les mêmes intérêts, nous n'avons pas toujours les mêmes objectifs. Mais lorsqu'il s'agit de la défense du football dans son ensemble, nous arrivons à nous retrouver, à discuter et à être autour de la table aujourd'hui. Et ça, c'est le sens de cette réunion d'aujourd'hui. Malheureusement avec un cas de justice, on y reviendra plus tard. Alors vous allez me dire, mais pourquoi vous êtes venus aujourd'hui et en fait tout va bien, vous entendez, les employeurs, les employés, si vous êtes ensemble, évidemment vous avez une force incroyable. Eh bien non, malheureusement, nous n'avons pas cette force incroyable et c'est pour ça que c'est important que nous soyons là aujourd'hui. Notre industrie est particulière. On a une organisation mondiale qui est la FIFA, qui est une organisatrice de compétition, mais qui aussi régit des lois, des règles qui s'imposent à l'ensemble du football. Et je pense que cette organisation est en train de faillir ou a déjà failli pour des intérêts personnels, politiques, mais également pour des intérêts financiers. Vous savez qu'on dit toujours que l'argent est le nerf de la guerre. C'est une évidence, ça permet aussi de temps en temps de convaincre certaines parties prenantes en leur redistribuant plus d'argent, mais ça ne fonctionne plus, ça ne marche plus et surtout l'équilibre global ne tient plus. Certains n'aiment pas quand j'en parle de ce fameux système pyramidal, mais ce système pyramidal, en tant qu'Européens, on doit y être attaché dans la mesure où nous avons la même interprétation. Et définitivement avec FIFA, et peut-être avec d'autres instances, nous n'avons pas ce même sentiment de système pyramidal où le haut de la pyramide a la responsabilité de reverser au bas de la pyramide. Et non pas l'objectif est d'être en haut de la pyramide pour écraser le bas de la pyramide. Et notre football est exactement dans cette situation actuelle. Il ne faut pas se tromper sur ce qui est en train d'être communiqué pour des raisons politiques, où on est en train de parler qu'une certaine partie de joueurs ou qu'une certaine partie de clubs. Non, non, l'impact va aller bien au-delà. Nous allons évidemment, et je laisserai mes amis et collègues des ligues développer leurs points, mais en tout cas, nous, en ce qui nous concerne, les joueurs, nous protégeons tous les joueurs. Je vais juste vous donner un exemple de les problèmes qui se posent à nous et surtout que la FIFA pose à nous. C'est-à-dire qu'on n'a pas la possibilité d'avoir un dialogue social avec la FIFA. Nous n'avons pas l'occasion de discuter avec la FIFA. La FIFA ne nous ouvre pas les portes. Ça, c'est une évidence. Et donc, les joueurs que nous rencontrons tous les jours. Vous avez vu les témoignages des joueurs, je pense qu'ils sont forts, ils sont construits, ils sont réfléchis. Ça fait 6 ans qu'ils nous font remonter ces problématiques du terrain. Notre réflexion à nous, FIFPro et à toutes les unions de joueurs, c'était de se dire, ok, ça c'est le travail, notre quotidien, d'être à côté d'eux, de remonter les problématiques. Mais après, ce travail, il faut le rendre audible, il faut le rendre cohérent et il faut le rendre objectif. Et ça, c'est le travail de FIFPro, c'est le travail que FIFPro a fait à travers des études, non pas d'anciens joueurs, mais de médecins, de responsables de la performance, et qui nous ont prouvé depuis 6 années, avec les reports que nous faisons, que évidemment, ce n'était pas que le ressenti des joueurs, que c'était une réalité, que c'était devenu objectif. Nous avons envoyé ces rapports, aucune réponse. Nous sommes allés plus loin, puisque quand vous sollicitez les joueurs, vous devez délivrer derrière, parce que je peux vous dire que les joueurs sont des gens qui sont ambitieux, mais qui sont aussi qui ont envie que les choses avancent. Et donc, nous sommes retournés les voir, discuter avec eux, et ils ont voulu être avec nous davantage et le montrer davantage. Je vais vous prendre un exemple. En 2021, la PFA, le syndicat anglais, a envoyé un courrier à la FIFA, signé par tous les capitaines de la Première Ligue, disant qu'ils ressentaient un calendrier trop chargé qui impactait leur santé physique et mentale. Et je dis bien physique et mentale. Aucune réponse. En 2022, l'UNFP, dont je suis le président, nous avons envoyé un courrier similaire, signé par tous les capitaines de toutes les équipes de Ligue 1, non pas seulement les tops, ceux qui participent aux compétitions européennes et mondiales, tous les capitaines de Ligue 1 ont envoyé ce courrier. Aucune réponse. Aucune réponse de la FIFA. Et donc ça, pour nous, c'est quelque chose qui est impossible, insupportable et surtout irrespectueux. Nous sommes dans une organisation aujourd'hui qui est forte, qui est puissante et qui met en avant le dialogue social. Qu'est-ce qu'a fait la FIFA? En 2023, elle a eu un congrès à Kigali où ils ont validé la Coupe du Monde des clubs et ils ont dit « Nous allons faire un comité sur la santé et le bien-être des joueurs ». C'était ça, peut-être, la réponse à ces 2 courriers venant des joueurs, venant des capitaines de Ligue 1 et de Première Ligue. Mais au jour d'aujourd'hui, ce comité ne s'est jamais réuni. Nous avons interrogé qui composait ce comité. Pas de réponse. Nous avons interrogé, mais combien de fois ce comité s'est réuni? Aucune réponse. Donc vous comprendrez pourquoi nous sommes là malheureusement aujourd'hui. Nous n'avons pas d'autre choix, parce que nous représentons nos joueurs, nous sommes que la parole des joueurs. Et ça paraît évident que dans une ambition personnelle, commerciale, financière, politique, non pas dans une ambition de protéger le football et les footballeurs, mais également les représentants des ligues. N'oublions pas que quand même, à travers les ligues, il y a les clubs qui génèrent beaucoup d'emplois. Évidemment, beaucoup de revenus, mais aussi beaucoup d'emplois. Et ça, nous devons le protéger. Et je pense que, clairement, la FIFA, dans un souci de développer des compétitions pour avoir plus de revenus et, excusez-moi l'expression, acheter des voix, eh ben, la FIFA a échoué dans son rôle de régulateur. Je pense que ça, on doit l'acter aujourd'hui, c'est définitif. Et c'est pour ça que nous sommes là aujourd'hui. Alors, qu'est-ce qui s'offre à nous? Quelles possibilités nous avons? Eh ben, nous avons la possibilité d'être ici aujourd'hui, de faire respecter le droit à la concurrence, le droit à la protection de la santé et du bien-être des travailleurs. Et je pense qu'on doit imposer, on doit exiger à cette instance forte, certes, économiquement surtout, d'exercer un dialogue social. Et nous sommes là, non pas pour leur demander d'être autour de la table, nous sommes là pour leur dire, nous sommes les employeurs et les employés du football, nous allons nous réunir, nous sommes prêts à travailler collectivement maintenant ensemble et nous verrons si on va vous inviter à la table. Parce que vous êtes juste une organisation et des organisateurs de compétition. C'est notre rôle, le dialogue social, et nous avons la chance, sur le continent européen, d'avoir des institutions fortes, d'avoir une organisation comme celle qu'on a aujourd'hui, la Commission européenne, qui doit faire respecter ce qu'il y a dans son traité. Et nous sommes là aujourd'hui pour défendre ces valeurs. Moi, je viens de la France, qui est le pays des droits de l'homme, et j'aime ces valeurs. Je souhaite les défendre, les combattre chaque jour et les faire respecter. Donc, nous sommes devant vous aujourd'hui pour vous dire, est-ce que vous êtes prêts aussi à mettre la pression sur ces instances? Est-ce que vous en êtes capable? Parce qu'il faut faire bouger les choses et nous ne sommes pas en train de protéger les top players ou les top clubs. Nous sommes en train de protéger notre football et nous devons le faire ensemble à travers les outils que nous avons. Et des outils, nous en avons de nombreux. Et ce qu'il ne faut pas faire, c'est tomber dans le piège qu'ils essayent de faire, c'est-à-dire de faire de la communication. Je prends qu'un exemple, vous savez, il y a eu un arrêt Diarra, Lassana Diarra, un joueur qui s'est battu pendant 10 ans pour faire valoir ses droits, qu'il les a eus. Le premier réflexe de FIFA a été de répondre très vite en disant « Ne vous inquiétez pas, il n'y a rien qui change. Juste 2-3 lignes, on va modifier et vous allez voir, ça va rouler, on va, comme on dit en France, on va remonter sur le vélo et on va continuer à pédaler. » Non, c'est pas ça l'arrêt Diarra. L'arrêt Diarra, c'est évidemment, personne ne veut casser le système des transferts. On veut plus de solidarité, mais on veut le construire ensemble avec les employeurs et les employés. Ce n'est pas vous, FIFA, qui va aller dicter vos lois. Il y a des lois. La Cour de justice de l'Union européenne les a remis à leur place, la FIFA, et leur a dit « Ok, ils peuvent construire un modèle comme ils le souhaitent. Tout ceci est possible si et seulement si employeurs et employés arrivent à trouver des accords à travers des conventions collectives. Et quand ces conventions collectives, nous ne sommes pas sur une dictature avec des décisions unilatérales comme nous impose FIFA. » Je vous remercie pour votre temps.
Thank you, David. And I would like to pass the floor to Mathieu Moreuil, Director International Relations at the Premier League and member of the Board of European Leagues. Mathieu.
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for coming to this press conference today. This is indeed a very important day. Alex, David have mentioned it. That's the first time ever that we have players' unions and leagues, social partners together to lodge the complaint against the international federation and decision-making process on the international match calendar. This is unfortunate, but the message that we have together is very simple. Enough is enough. We can't take it anymore. We have now an international match calendar which is beyond saturation, which creates a lot of issues for domestic leagues in terms of scheduling, but also in terms of organizing other domestic competitions. An international match calendar which creates risks for players, for their health. And we've tried to engage with FIFA on that for years now without any positive response. So enough is enough. This season you will see a dramatic increase of number of international matches, 50% more matches in the Champions League. The Club World Cup moving from 7 to 32 teams. Next season you will have a World Cup with 48 teams. So this is very, very difficult to handle for domestic competition organizers. We don't have enough dates anymore in the calendar. And it has consequences at domestic level, as I said. We have to adapt, we have to modify some of our competitions. Domestic cups have been changed. Some leagues have decided to reduce the number of clubs. And this is not good for domestic organizers and for the fans. Let's not forget that the fans cherish those domestic competitions. That's the thing that they, first and foremost enjoy as football fans. And they said it several times. They said it when there was this proposal of the biannual World Cup. They said it when the Super League came up. They want to see domestic football, at its best. And this is the bedrock of football in Europe and beyond. So I just want to reiterate some of the messages that we've seen today. You heard Kevin De Bruyne, who very clearly said it. The players' unions and the league have tried to engage with FIFA for many, many years. I think we sent 20 letters as leagues, through our representative body, European Leagues or World Leagues Association, more than 20 letters to FIFA without any concrete results. So we are in a situation where we have no other choice. Legal action is now the only option, really. And that's again, unfortunate. But we want to protect our football, our domestic football, the ecosystem, the economics of it. And we want now that the system changes. As simple as that. We want a transparent process. We want agreements between social partners, but also with FIFA. Not only consultation, real agreements. And we want a calendar that is sustainable for domestic leagues and for players in the future. Enough is enough, and we hope that we're going to have a bright future for our sport. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mathieu. It was also said by this coalition that indeed the problem of the calendar is not just a problem for some players. Many players are affected by that. It's also not just a problem for some playing markets. Many playing markets in Europe are affected by that. And therefore, we're also very happy to have Christopher Watzauk with us today, the Executive President of the Norwegian Players Union, to give you a perspective also from a medium-sized playing market in Europe. Christopher, please.
Thank you. Well, to start with, it's a bit emotional. Just sitting here today to be the little brother in the room on this stage. Finally, it's a turning point. Goes to show that all the people in this room are here to listen, and that's it's great for us who represent the players as well. Finally, we got the attention that we want. I'm going to read what I have to say. I represent the players, the Norwegian players, both worldwide and in Norway. At the moment, Norwegian League, which has given us Rosenborg, Bodø/Glimt, Molde, I guess some of your teams have lost against them, Haaland, Ødegaard, Ørsnes, Sørloth, Ryerson, and so on. at the 11th place at the league ranking in Europe. It's an all-time high for us. That reflects both the incredible opportunities and the challenges that comes with European football. We are all mutually dependent on each other, working hard every single day to make dreams possible for the players, for the fans, both home and abroad. We want to dream big. We are Norwegians. We want our players to be able to compete at the highest levels at home, in European leagues and on the broader international stages. However, we lost yesterday against Austria, don't mention that. It's not just about performance, it's about creating football industry that respects the rights and well-being of those its core business, the players. Football in Norway is growing, with more people joining the sport and fan interest is increasing. This is something to celebrate. Of course it is. And we are proud. But there is a big growing discontent also in Norway. Forced changes in the play schedules, reduced rest periods, and creeping demands are more than just inconveniences. They are violations of the labor rights. They breach collective agreements and contracts. And the basic protection every worker, I use the word worker, as the players are, should be guaranteed. These are challenges that could force players to choose to not represent the national team, as happens, due to the increasing workload, which not only affects their careers, but also diminishes the quality of the Norwegian football that I represent. For the players, for the fans, and the sports as a whole, this is important. For the football to be a sustainable industry across all nations in Europe and levels, there must be a deep and unwavering respect for the people in it. Because the players are not only a part of it, the players are the heart of it. We demand to be heard for the sake of the game, for the future of the Norwegian football, but most importantly for the players. Players have rights to be a fair career, to grow and to perform without having their rights trampled on. And if you ask the players, you should ask the players, they will tell you they want to play games. They want to feel the pressure and feel the demands, but they always choose quality before quantity, always. For the love of the football, for the quality of the game, and for the direct, increasingly respect of the players, now in the future, we stand united here today. And that's the reason I'm a bit emotional. Because this is the day we start working better together. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Christopher, for your remarks, and I would like to pass the floor to Javier Tebas, the president of La Liga.
Buenas tardes a todos. No hace falta que diga los años que llevo en una lucha constante, sobre todo con los temas de gobernanza de nuestras instituciones que rigen el fútbol, ¿no? Pero es importante hacer un matiz, ¿no? Yo creo que la FIFA y la UEFA, como instituciones, son entes claves en el desarrollo del fútbol en toda la pirámide, como decía David. Otra cosa es que hagan un uso adecuado de esa posición que el Tribunal de Justicia de la Unión Europea les ha reconocido, esa posición de monopolio. Pero cuando uno tiene reconocida esa posición de monopolio, es importante que no cometas constantemente abusos de posición dominante, ¿no? Porque puede perder esa condición de monopolio. Y nos encontramos, en este caso, en el día de hoy, ante unas decisiones que se están tomando por parte de FIFA en esa posición de monopolio, en que, en nuestra opinión, y por eso hoy hemos presentado una denuncia a la Comisión Europea, en el tema del calendario se está ejerciendo un abuso de posición dominante. Nos resulta sorprendente que después de 9 meses que llevamos de resoluciones en el ámbito del Tribunal de Justicia de la Unión Europea muy importantes, con mensajes muy importantes en cuanto a las normas de gobernanza de lo que tiene que ser el fútbol en Europa y por ende en el resto del mundo, FIFA no haya oído o leído el mensaje que se está lanzando desde la institución judicial más importante que existe en la Unión Europea, ¿no? Mensajes claros que van respecto a las normas de gobernanza. Mensajes claros a que tiene que haber procesos reglamentados, transparentes, no discriminatorios, en todos los ámbitos y más en este ámbito que estamos hablando, del ámbito laboral. FIFA no puede regular nada que afecte en el ámbito laboral sin el acuerdo de los jugadores y de los empleadores. Y ese mensaje está en la sentencia del caso de la Superliga, y ese mensaje está en el caso de la sentencia de Diarra, pero no se quiere leer, o no se quiere oír, o no se quiere. Y parece imposible que sigamos, porque hace escasamente 10 días la propia FIFA, el 7 de octubre, por unanimidad de todos los presentes, quiero recordar, de todas las confederaciones presentes, aprueba el reglamento del Mundial de Clubes, donde establece que se abre una ventana para poder incorporar jugadores del 1 al 10 de junio, creo que es, ¿no? Que afecta a jugadores y afecta a empleadores, y la han tomado así por unanimidad, ya no digo deprisa y corriendo, porque ya no sé si lo hacen deprisa corriendo o tan despacio que lo hacen a conciencia, ¿no? Pero que desde luego supone claramente transgredir lo que vienen diciendo las últimas resoluciones judiciales del Tribunal de Justicia de la Unión Europea, ¿no? Yo recordaré datos importantes, ¿no? También es importante que seamos conscientes que en Europa, que son los datos que puedo manejar más hoy, hay más de 50.000 jugadores profesionales. Hay jugadores de 1.000 euros al mes y jugadores de 2 millones de euros al mes. Pero todos es necesario que defendamos colectivamente a todos los jugadores. Hay más de 2.000 clubes profesionales. En esta mesa, entre jugadores y empleadores, es donde se tiene que decidir cómo se tiene que regular esta industria en el ámbito laboral y también en muchos aspectos económicos. Podremos invitar a FIFA, podremos invitar a UEFA, pero es donde se tiene que regular. Como hacemos en nuestros mercados, en nuestros países. Yo me siento con el sindicato en España y pacto el calendario. Y pacto el tema también de las transferencias de jugadores y del caso de Diarra, también lo pactamos con el sindicato. Y no está la federación sentada en esa mesa. Después nos coordinamos para las competiciones que organiza la federación. Pero eso se pacta. Pues lo mismo tiene que ocurrir en el ámbito mundial. Tenemos que pensar que el fútbol profesional hoy no es el mismo que hace 20 años. Bueno, no es el mismo ni de hace 10 años. En cambio, está regido con las mismas normas de gobernanza que hace 20 años. Con las mismas prebendas y el mismo desconocimiento, tengo que decirlo así, de lo que está ocurriendo en la industria del fútbol. En España somos el 1,4% del PIB. Están los jugadores, están los entrenadores, están sus familias, los medios de comunicación. Tenemos que pensar mucho en los efectos de cualquier decisión que tomamos. Y yo creo que en el ámbito de FIFA no se ha pensado. Por eso nos hemos visto obligados a poner esta demanda. Yo, para terminar, diría que hoy FIFA, a través de Emilio, lanza el mensaje del diálogo sobre un tema muy especial, porque nosotros el tema laboral tiene mucho más diálogo. El mensaje del diálogo lo aceptamos, pero también se lo lanzamos nosotros, los que estamos en esta mesa. Te vamos a invitar a dialogar y que conozcas las reivindicaciones, lo que queremos, cómo se tiene que organizar la industria. Que vengas a oír y a acordar si tiene que haber más competiciones. Y que vengas y acordemos si esas van contra la salud de los jugadores. Que vengas y acordemos si esas van contra las competiciones nacionales. No solo dialogar, que de dialogar hemos ido a muchas reuniones. Hablamos y luego hacen lo que quieren. No. Hay que hablar, hay que dialogar, por supuesto, pero hay que acordar, que es lo más importante. El diálogo sirve si tiene un final, que es el acuerdo. Si el diálogo no sirve, si al final es hago lo que yo he querido y el diálogo se convierte en falso. Aquí, hoy, lo tengo que decir, es uno de los días más históricos y más importantes del fútbol. Y escríbalo así porque es así. Y lo van a ver ustedes en los próximos meses. Yo diría que ha habido 2 días para mí históricos en el fútbol. Uno en el 2019, cuando se paró una reforma de UEFA y ECA de la Champions League, y hoy. Hoy se da un paso importantísimo en el que es el camino del cambio de gobernanzas de las instituciones de nuestro fútbol. Y no vamos a perder esta oportunidad. Por lo menos el presidente de la Liga no va a perder esta oportunidad. Trabajamos en positivo para conseguir este cambio de gobernanza y que el calendario, el problema que se ha generado con la resolución de Darriá, problema o oportunidad, porque me consta que el sindicato ni el propio jugador quieren destruir el fútbol con esa decisión, todo lo contrario. Quieren construir a través de esa decisión cómo se puede proteger la estabilidad contractual, pero participando los empleadores y los jugadores. Nada más, y apunten, es un día histórico en el fútbol profesional y en el fútbol en el mundo, y los próximos meses ustedes lo van a ver y se van a acordar de lo que acabo de decir. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Javier, and we would like to invite Umberto Calgano, the president of the Italian Players Union, AIC. Umberto, please.
Grazie Alexander e grazie a tutti i presenti. Concordo e riprendo le parole del presidente Tebas. Oggi abbiamo tutti quanti davvero una grande opportunità. Essere qui tutti quanti insieme e riuscire per la prima volta a manifestare il nostro dissenso verso una situazione che anche i calciatori che giocano in Italia percepiscono come una grande stortura. Oggi abbiamo la sensazione che il calcio stia quasi iniziando a divorare se stesso. Ma oggi, stando qua tutti insieme, ho anche la sensazione che finalmente la salute dei calciatori non è più una questione sindacale, non può più essere una questione sindacale, perché preservare la salute della parte migliore del nostro spettacolo vuol dire difendere il nostro sistema. Il rischio che noi stiamo correndo è che per massimizzare probabilmente i ricavi, il valore della produzione, nel breve periodo, concentrandolo tra l'altro in pochissimi club, si rischia però poi di mettere sul mercato un prodotto che può diventare nel medio-lungo periodo meno bello di quello che siamo abituati a vedere. Quale comparto industriale, quale azienda per massimizzare i ricavi nel breve periodo incide negativamente sul suo prodotto? È una sfida che abbiamo lanciato con FIFPro da tanti anni. Io ricordo le prime statistiche, i primi incontri che anche prima della pandemia abbiamo fatto tutti quanti insieme. Oggi si pretende che i top player che giocano ad una velocità che è superiore del 50% rispetto a soltanto 10 anni fa, e questi sono i dati che tutti quanti conoscete, sono ragazzi bravi e fortunati dai quali pretendiamo di andare molto più forte, giocando sempre più partite, 60, 70, il mondiale per club potrebbe portare qualcuno dei nostri ragazzi a giocare 80 partite, viaggiando per 120.000 chilometri magari all'anno per chi ha le nazionali oltreoceano, e pretendiamo che tutto questo avvenga con soltanto 15-20 allenamenti veri all'anno per questi top player. Nella scorsa stagione, lo abbiamo calcolato, togliendo gli allenamenti del post gara, del giorno successivo alla partita, e la rifinitura del giorno precedente, i calciatori delle grandi squadre non riescono più ad allenarsi. Come ben sapete non c'è più il ritiro precampionato, si gioca fin dai primi allenamenti. E quindi è realmente un mondo che rischia di divorare se stesso. E i calciatori che giocano in Italia, italiani e stranieri, hanno ben presente quanto sia importante preservare non soltanto la loro salute, ma anche il merito sportivo, il valore dei campionati nazionali, perché il mondiale per club non è soltanto qualcosa che inciderà negativamente sulla salute dei calciatori, ma è qualcosa che inciderà ancor più negativamente su una concentrazione di ricchezza in mano a pochi club. Non ho mai sentito parlare di redistribuire meglio le nuove risorse che verranno create. Non ho mai sentito parlare di preservare anche nell'accesso a queste competizioni un merito sportivo che derivi dai campionati nazionali, cosa che invece, con tutte le situazioni che la nuova Champions League sta comunque creando, che comunque preserva in una situazione di merito sportivo. Quindi oggi la FIFA non ha degli atteggiamenti contrari soltanto alle norme europee e alle direttive sulla salute e sulla sicurezza dei calciatori, ma nell'essere ente regolatore, nell'avere il potere legislativo, non ha badato a questi aspetti e soprattutto ha badato quasi esclusivamente alla massimizzazione dei propri interessi economici. Questi sono i fondamenti dell'abuso di posizione dominante, che a nostro avviso è fin troppo chiaro in un atteggiamento di questo tipo, ma possono e devono essere anche un'opportunità per poter aprire una nuova forma di dialogo. Noi su questo investiremo tutti quanti insieme le nostre energie, ben sapendo che non basta effettivamente parlare, non si può essere da soli, bisogna essere in due per riuscire a chiudere degli accordi, ma sono anche convinto, perché le società oggi, quando si parla della stanchezza anche psicologica degli atleti di alto livello, le società hanno una sensibilità differente. Non si sorride più quando si parla degli infortuni dei calciatori. Le banalizzazioni che riguardano i loro stipendi e il fatto che siano dei ragazzi bravi e fortunati, oggi fortunatamente non accompagnano più chi vive a stretto contatto con loro. Sono strumentalizzazioni che magari fanno alcuni media e sono situazioni che forse sui social hanno diciamo, un canale preferenziale. Ma dobbiamo riuscire a lavorare su queste situazioni sapendo che non sono più questioni sindacali. Noi abbiamo bisogno di trovare un accordo su questo, sapendo di avere la forza di proporre situazioni che riguardano tutto il sistema. E io ne sono convinto, oggi ne usciamo rafforzati e sono convinto che la giornata di oggi è il punto di partenza per creare tra noi un'alleanza stabile che possa fare bene al nostro sistema, perché dobbiamo chiederci quali siano le scelte migliori, perché le scelte che prenderemo in questi anni condizioneranno i prossimi 10, 15, probabilmente 20 anni, non soltanto dei calciatori e delle calciatrici, ma anche degli allenatori, dei dirigenti, dei presidenti, perché sarà poi difficile tornare indietro se non riusciremo a rimettere al centro il merito sportivo e gli aspetti solidaristici che in un sistema sportivo non potranno mai mancare. Grazie.
Thank you, Umberto. And for the closing, I would like to hand over to the board member of European League, CEO of the Belgian Pro League, Lorin Paris. Please.
Yes, thank you, Alexander. And I have the unenviable task to come last. So I'll try to wrap up some of the things that have been said. And of course, to answer the question that some of you might be asking, why is a medium-sized league like the Pro League sitting next to two of the biggest leagues in the world? And the reason is simple. The decisions around the international match calendar are decisions that reverberate through all of the leagues, all of the 40 leagues in Europe that are a member of the European leagues, and I will tell you why. First, what is happening? In our view, just when we succeeded together with the fans and many other allies to keep our front door closed for the threat of the Super League, here comes FIFA through our back door, whistling and yelling surprise, saying, you know, we've got a present for you guys, and it's really the Super League under a different name. At least it has the seats in it of what could become a Super League in the future. So we feel that as a world football body, FIFA should really be fronting as a friend, but it acts more like a foe. And that's something that we want to change. And the reason that today is important is because we think today is the first day of hopefully a new era where that changes. Second, how did we get there, and why does this affect us as a small and a medium league? Well, it's not difficult to see how we got into this mess. The Super League has never materialized, but it has been very successful in reverberating throughout Europe and throughout all of the leagues that might be concerned without ever materializing. So as a first reaction, UEFA promised more money to big teams. Therefore, they had to put up more games in order to have more TV rights income. And at least in making that calendar come together, there was some form of consultative process with the leagues. Not ideal, but it happened. In turn, FIFA reacted because they didn't want to stay behind in terms of the relative earnings vis-à-vis UEFA. And they added more games, mostly for the top teams. The difference being that there has been no form of consultation in making this happen. And as a league that is 8th in Europe, so you have the big 5 and then the 3 leagues beneath who vie, to be in 6th position, we were affected, even though we have no teams that play in the Club World Cup that is set to start at the end of the season. We are affected just like the 39 other leagues in Europe. First of all, in terms of calendar. So we have given up a number of extra slots to accommodate for extra games on the international level. We will see more release periods taking hold for the new FIFA competitions without us having anything to say about that. That in turn yields, of course, pressure on the domestic calendar in terms of starting time, end time. In Belgium, we play a lot of matches, which is a fact. We have a calendar with 40 match days, but we haven't changed that calendar in the last decade. What has happened is that there's a number of international windows that have been added on top of our calendar, sometimes without us having anything to say about that. And what you see is that you get pressure on your calendar because it becomes more difficult to have a real break during winter time. It becomes more difficult to give our players the number of vacation days, holidays that they are legally entitled to. And it becomes more difficult to reschedule a game when, as might happen from time to time in Belgium, it snows. So we are affected by what is happening at the international level. So we're witnessing a race to put more games on, but there is a limited amount of physical time that players can play and that viewers can view. So we are in danger of sewing off the tree branch that we're all sitting up together. So is this just a bad news press conference? No, it's not. Because third, what is the solution? Firstly, we should recognize this for what it is, which is a fight about global football governance, which we think today is really lacking in how it should be done. And secondly, all we were asking was, as you've heard my colleague say, for FIFA to pick up the phone and to pull up a chair, or 2 chairs at least, for the players to be represented during the process where we decide together on the international match calendar, and for the leagues as the representatives of the clubs to be present at that table. But today, I think as some of my predecessors have already indicated, we're turning the table. We're starting from the social dialogue. We're starting from employees and employers coming together and inviting FIFA or UEFA, whenever applicable, to come to the table and decide with us how we should put that international match calendar together. And that, I think, is what is happening today. Two more remarks before I end my intervention. If you look at what the European Court has done with Diarra, if you look at this complaint, and if you look at what has happened with the Super League case and the European Court of Justice's judgment there, it's really clear that something's got to give in terms of international football governance. We've reached the limits of the system that we're living in today. And it is quite unique that we have employers and employees sitting together at the same table asking for the same thing. So that should tell you something. And finally, what we see as one of the bigger threats for global football is that the widening rift between the haves and the have-nots in football, that widening rift is really in danger of becoming much larger if you look at some of the consequences that Diarra might have, that the Super League might have, and that the way that the international match calendar is being put together today. And if we continue down this road, we're at risk of losing the fan. And let's not forget that it's he and or she who is footing our bill. So basically, all we're asking for today is let's have a conversation, let's decide together, but from now on, it will start coming from employers, coming from employees together, and we will invite other international organizations in to come to a sound, transparent, and objective decision together with us. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think as a brief summary, we can say that while there are slightly different perspectives also existing between the leagues and the unions, there are at least three principles that align everyone on this table. That is relating to governance, that is relating to player health and safety, and that is relating to the viability of national leagues and playing markets and the rights of these stakeholders to negotiate that together at the same table with the international federations. We will come back with questions and answers to this group in just a moment. However, I think now the real fun stuff is going to start, and I'm going to hand over to Alfonso and Marc from Garrigues to give us a brief update on the legal technicalities of the case.
Here, this one. So, good afternoon, welcome. My name is Alfonso Lamadrid. I am a partner at the law firm Garrigues, and together with my colleague Mark English, I am leading the legal team responsible for the complaint. We are representing all three complainants, and we're here to provide you with a brief overview of the legal framing of the complaint. We will also be available for technical questions after this session. Now, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Alex just said that this is going to be the fun stuff. I'm afraid to say that from a legal standpoint, this is a very easy and straightforward case. FIFA's conduct is a textbook example of abusive anti-competitive behavior. The complaint explains that FIFA's conduct is contrary to both Articles 102 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, which prohibits the abuse of a dominant position, and to Article 101 of the treaty, which prohibits anti-competitive agreements. And we do so building very closely on the recent Super League and the Diarra judgments. So, in the Super League judgment, the Court of Justice of the European Union already found, first, that FIFA has an indisputable monopoly. Second, that decisions and conduct resulting from FIFA's conflict of interest arising from its dual role as both the football regulator and as a market participant and organizer of competitions are contrary to EU competition law. And third, that FIFA can only continue to act as the global football regulator provided that it puts in place an objective, transparent, precise and non-discriminatory decision-making procedure. So in essence, this complaint is simply seeking to extract the practical consequences of the Super League and the ARA judgments for the international match calendar. Now, as I've explained, the conflict of interest at the heart of this case is precisely the same one that was at stake in Super League. But nowhere is FIFA's conflict of interest and lack of due process safeguards more evident than in relation to the setting of the international match calendar. By virtue of its de facto monopoly as the global football regulator, FIFA is able to unilaterally impose the conditions and the calendar under which both players and leagues can exercise their economic activity without players and leagues having any say in these decisions. By virtue of its monopoly as football regulator, FIFA can also unilaterally set windows for international matches organized by FIFA or under FIFA's auspices. And it mandates clubs to release players for the duration of those windows. So FIFA can effectively secure the services of the top players without paying market compensation, free riding on the investment of leagues and clubs. And given that FIFA's revenues increase with the organization of competitions, FIFA only has incentive to organize more and longer competitions to get more and more revenues. Now, contrary to its obligations under EU law, FIFA continues to refuse to engage with players and leagues to agree on measures capable of ensuring that the calendar is sustainable and respectful of players' health and of their rights as workers under labor law and also under collective bargaining agreements entered into at the national level. From a pure legal standpoint, the fact that FIFA's conduct is contrary to competition on the merits is evident and is the logical consequences of the rulings that we just discussed. We explain in the complaint that FIFA's conduct constitutes an abuse by object, a restriction of competition by object, but that it is moreover already causing harmful effects on players' health, on the sustainability of leagues, and on European football. And as my colleague Mark English will explain in a moment, from a strictly legal perspective, it is equally clear that FIFA's conduct is unjustified. Thank you.
Green one. Okay. Thank you, Alfonso. My name is Mark English, and I'm a partner at Garrigues. So I will walk you through briefly three slides. First, explaining that FIFA's conduct is unjustified. Then I'll explain briefly what remedies we are seeking, and I'll conclude with some remarks on next steps. So to explain to you why FIFA's conduct is unjustified, in the summer, when the intention to file this complaint became known, FIFA made some statements seeking to justify their behaviour, and I'm here to explain briefly why those attempted justifications don't work. First and foremost, the EU Court of Justice has already poured a large bucket of cold water on these arguments, and it's already found that FIFA's conduct, FIFA's conflict of interests, in the absence of proper procedures, is unjustified, i.e. it is not necessary or indispensable to achieving any legitimate goal. FIFA will claim, no doubt, that it only organises a small minority of matches. That claim is both false and it is irrelevant. FIFA is responsible for setting the rules applicable to all football stakeholders, including FIFA, but also confederations like UEFA, national associations, and it affects players and leagues equally. So to focus on FIFA organised competitions is largely missing the point. Matches organised by FIFA or within the international match calendar directly have a disproportionate knock-on effects on national leagues. During competitions organised under the IMC, the whole football ecosystem is forced to pause for the commercial benefits of FIFA. The multiple 9-day international windows include not only matches, but also preparation and international travel, often across time zones, and account for a very significant portion of players' working time. Now also, FIFA can modify and increase the number and length of FIFA competitions organised under FIFA's IMC, essentially at its discretion, as we've seen with the 2026 World Cup and the 2025 Club World Cup. FIFA might talk about redistribution, essentially using revenue generated to support football in various countries. Again, the Court of Justice of the EU has already rejected FIFA's claim that its conflict of interest, again, in the absence of due process, may be justified by any alleged redistribution goals. I mean, in a nutshell, the lack of good governance is not necessary to achieving any of these aims, and one does not achieve these aims through conduct that harms and exploits players and national leagues. So moving on to remedies, what is it that we want? Well, to be clear, the complainants are not seeking financial compensation from FIFA, but instead a fair and inclusive decision-making procedure in relation to setting the IMC as well as the design and scheduling of other FIFA-organised competitions. At this stage, the complainants are not generally challenging FIFA's role as global regulator, nor the lawfulness of mandatory player release obligations in themselves. What the complaint does is it requests the Commission to adopt a decision that would declare FIFA's conduct covered by the complaint. Again, that is the conflict of interest in combination with a lack of proper and inclusive procedures to be contrary to Articles 102 and 101 TFEU, essentially the EU rules on competition. The complaint requests that the Commission adopt a decision imposing a cease and desist order on FIFA, essentially ordering them to cease their breach of EU competition law, and importantly, order that FIFA put in place a transparent, objective, precise, inclusive and non-discriminatory process in agreement with leagues and players' unions that would ensure the well-being and fundamental rights of football players and the respect of collective bargaining agreements that are agreed at national level. And on to next steps. So as you've heard, the complaint has now been filed jointly by European leagues, FIFA Pro Europe and La Liga with the European Commission. The European Commission will now investigate the complaint. Now, there are no deadlines for the Commission to run its preliminary or formal investigations, and in carrying out its investigation, the European Commission has wide-ranging investigative powers. Should the Commission find that the complaint is well-founded, it could either make binding possible commitments that FIFA may offer, or it could ultimately impose remedies or fines. But again, achieving the imposition of a fine is not why we filed this complaint. It's not why we're here today. European leagues, FIFA Pro Europe and La Liga, look forward to assisting the European Commission further and will continue to provide relevant materials and updated investigation throughout the Commission's investigation. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Alfonso. I hope I didn't promise too much in terms of the fun part. As we said, we will have a specific informal legal briefing after the official part of the press conference concludes, so that will allow to really dive a little bit deeper and maybe also in between the lines of the explanations you have just heard. We will open in just a moment for questions and answers for the floor. But before we will do that, we will listen to one short clip, which is echoing the voice of the players from the coaches in Europe and across.
No, claro, preocupar sí, un montón. Sobre todo nosotros cuando jugás, por ejemplo, no sé, Argentina contra Venezuela en Venezuela, no solo está la carga de jugador del partido anterior en Europa, el viaje, sino que después el segundo partido tenés que volver a Buenos Aires, otras 7 horas de vuelo. la verdad que bueno, es impensado que eso pueda mejorar porque al final los jugadores juegan todo en Europa y los partidos son los que hay, pero sí que intentamos, la verdad que tenemos un poco de tiempo, intentamos pensar más en la recuperación que los entrenamientos pensando en el partido, porque al final lo único que queremos es que rindan al máximo y no le podemos poner mucha carga, pero sí que es verdad que es un contratiempo y hay que hacerlo de la mejor manera.
Io penso che, come he dicho otras veces, è un calendario che non si può sostener e lo que preparan el calendario tienen que mirar a esto. Entonces, ma no lo están mirando porque ahora tenemos este problema, va a ser más porque tenemos un mundial con más partido, tenemos una Champions League con más partido. Y creo que la única solución es reducir los números de los partidos.
People don't think about the mental aspect of the game and what is asking you, what those games are asking you mentally. Physically, your body will adapt, but mentally it's difficult to recover, especially when you're the guy of that team that everyone always expects for you to deliver. It's not easy. They play too many games for me.
And forget all this nonsense about how much money they earn. That's got nothing to do with it. As Thierry said, you want to see the best players at their best in the biggest moments, and we're not seeing that because they're just getting run into the ground.
I was part of the FIFA Pro, which is the players' union worldwide. So at the end of my career, so it was already a very important topic that was being looked at very seriously. I think it's not just the load for the players, but it's also the travels and these guys. Some of these guys, they go from playing in the Champions League to playing a national team game in Korea or something and then back. And if you do that for 70, 75, 80 games, it's a point where it's not realistic anymore. So to this point, I can only support the feeling of the players. The solution I've sort of always wanted and that I've mentioned since I was a player as well is to just put a cap on the amount of games a player can play as an individual. Put a cap, put a compulsory period of holidays, and then for the rest it sort of takes away the pressure a little bit from clubs being restricted in terms of numbers of games. Yes, you can play a lot of games, but you have restrictions on the amount of games you can use your player for, so it protects the health of the players, it protects the interest of the clubs, and only later we'll worry about the coaches who have to coach 90 games, but for the rest it's not something that I'm saying that is new. It's an opinion that I've shared for about 4 or 5 years now. So the best of both worlds, maybe it's possible, maybe not, but that's what I was sort of thinking would make sense. And of course, always exceptions for finals. Can't take that away from players.
All right. We now open for questions from the floor. As I said before, technical legal questions will go to the legal briefing. If there are questions on national context, national regulatory issues, we will also park that for individual conversations afterwards. And please state your name, your organization, and to whom you address the questions. Laura Scott from the BBC, please.
And my question is to Mathieu. Mathieu, you are here representing the Premier League. We know that the Premier League have removed the winter break. We know that many of your members go on pre-season tours. Is there an element of hypocrisy to what you're saying here today? And just another question, you said enough is enough. What do you think when you hear a player like Rodri warning of player strikes?
Thank you very much. Well, the hypocrisy, I mean, that's what we heard from FIFA, right? First and foremost, I would like to recall that the Premier League has not changed its format and the number of matches that we organized for the last 30 years. If anything, we reduced the number of matches that we organized because we started with 22 clubs and we moved to 20. So I think there is an element here that we should not forget. Second, the individual tours, that's a club issue. They decide to go on tours. They very often do that on the basis of retraining, preparing for the new season, and for commercial opportunities, obviously. But that's their decision. It's not a league decision. And third, the strike. Obviously, you know, we feel for the players, and what we are doing today is to try to obviously find a solution to avoid those very, very extreme measures. So I hope we're not going to get to that point, but it's obviously, you know, it's obviously something that the players have mentioned, and we have to listen to that.
Thank you. Next round of questions. Alistair Walker from Politico, please.
Hi, Alistair Walker, Politico. This is a question again for Mathieu and also Javier. Would you say the Club World Cup is a worse threat to the football pyramid than the Super League was? And would you urge your clubs to boycott it?
Do you understand? Okay. Look, the Club World Cup is a new competition that we haven't seen yet. So it's difficult to draw conclusions on whether or not it's the worst thing ever. I wouldn't say that. It has some issues in terms of calendar, in terms of, you know, revenues. We don't know really, you know, how the money will be redistributed, how it's going to trickle down. We have very little information, in fact. So very difficult to give an opinion on that. But clearly, that's the addition of all these elements, you know, an extended continental competition, an extended World Cup, a new Club World Cup, again, moving from, you know, a format with 7 clubs to a format with 32 clubs. The whole thing put together is, I think, the real threat for both domestic leagues and players, and that's exactly the message that we want to share today.
Yo indicarte dos cosas. No es que una sea peor, son las dos muy peores. Son muy malas las dos, ¿no? Y con criterios diferentes, el por qué, es que no es comparable, ¿no? Pero una es con el Mundial de Clubes afecta claramente a la salud de los jugadores que van a jugar esa competición, eso nadie lo pone en duda, ¿no? La Superliga era un tema de jornadas entre semanas sustituyendo a la Champions, que esa afecta más no tanto a la salud, sino afecta al ecosistema económico de las ligas en el fútbol europeo. Y claro, también el Mundial de Clubes, en cuanto al tema económico, es que una reducción en el calendario, bueno, esa ocupación de fechas que parece que solo es un verano, obliga a nuestras ligas nacionales a modificar los calendarios de 2 temporadas, a aplicarlos, y eso tiene unos efectos claramente económicos durante durante 2 temporadas. Hay que jugar más veces entre semana, hay que jugar más veces un partido suelto, 3 sueltos, y eso afecta muchísimo al valor de la competición. O sea, las dos son muy malas, pero digamos que los efectos son diferentes, no es comparable, es decir, pero los dos tienen unos efectos gravísimos sobre el ecosistema del fútbol europeo y mundial, en mi opinión.
The gentleman over there, please.
Buenas tardes, Manuel Gómez del diario El País. Voy a aprovechar que hay traducción en español. Varios de ustedes han hablado de negociación y de diálogo social entre empleadores y empleados. Bueno, en el diálogo social ceden las dos partes, en este caso serían 3. Me gustaría saber qué están ustedes dispuestos a ceder en una negociación con FIFA. ¿Están dispuestos a reducir algo sus competiciones? ¿Están dispuestos a reducir sus ganancias? Gracias.
Could you mention a name and a person to address the question to, please? The question is addressed to whom?
Javier Tebas habló de diálogo social y un representante de sindicato de trabajadores.
Bueno, yo por ser claro, no vamos a disminuir las competiciones nacionales, porque quien ha ocupado las fechas, quien ha generado este problema, no somos las competiciones nacionales, las ha generado quien ha creado en los últimos años otro tipo de competiciones o cambios de formatos. El último y el que ha colmado ya derramar la gota de agua en el vaso ha sido el Mundial de Clubes, pero quien ha creado una National League con carácter competitivo y no partidos amistosos no hemos sido nosotros, ha sido la UEFA. Quien ha cambiado el formato ha sido la UEFA, no hemos sido nosotros. Las competiciones nacionales en el ecosistema del fútbol, lo he dicho en mi intervención, hay 50.000 jugadores profesionales. Hay 2.000 clubes profesionales, hay que defender ese ecosistema y ese es el que vamos a defender. No se pueden ceder cosas que rompe el ecosistema de ligas y equipos que no participan en competiciones europeas, que no juegan mundiales de clubes, que la gran parte de sus jugadores no van a los campeonatos del mundo ni a las Eurocopas. Ese ecosistema es el que hay que defender, el que ha crecido durante los últimos 20 años. Y es el que, cuando hablamos de ceder, entre lo que vamos a ceder entre nosotros será en buscar soluciones a este problema. Mire, ayer el presidente Ceferín, creo que fue, dijo una cuestión que decía que los jugadores que jugaban el Mundial de Clubes eran los que más ganaban y tiene razón. Por eso mismo no se puede hacer el Mundial de Clubes, porque esos jugadores ni necesitan ganar más ni quieren ganar más. Por esa misma razón no hay que hacer el Mundial de Clubes. Es muy importante y de eso es lo que yo entiendo que se está dispuesto a ceder, ¿no? O sea, no es que, porque ese ejemplo yo también lo he dicho muchas veces, los que son los que sí, pero los que más ganan. Pero en la versión que no es necesaria esa competición, donde el 85% de los ingresos van a ir a los clubes y de ese 85%, el 70, el 80 y en algún caso el 90% se los llevan estos jugadores que son los que más ganan. Por lo tanto, no es necesaria esa competición que rompe la salud de los jugadores, que rompe el ecosistema económico del fútbol, porque ya lo he explicado, afecta a 2 temporadas, no es necesario. Y eso es, no hay que, yo por lo menos no estamos dispuestos a ceder que la Liga Española pase de 20 a 18. ¿Para qué? Para expulsar a los clubes, mandar al paro a un montón de jugadores, a que los jugadores ingresen menos dinero por jugar una competición que no genera nada de valor positivo.
Oui. Je suis d'accord avec tout ce qu'a dit Javier. Après, il ne faut pas se tromper. Qui sont les employeurs, qui sont les employés? Il y a un vrai problème, c'est que les clubs sont dirigés, manipulés ou forcés de suivre les plus forts qui veulent toujours plus de revenus et donc qui imposent aux autres à travers la redistribution. Donc il faut être aussi vigilant et c'est pour ça que nous essayons de jouer en équipe. Nous sommes bien conscients. On parle toujours des top players. Oui, mais vous avez qu'à dire à vos top players qui baissent les salaires. Je suis juste en train de... Moi, je vais remettre... ne faites pas jouer ces top players et on verra si vos compétitions ont les mêmes revenus. Ça, c'est une évidence. Donc ça ne peut pas être que dans un sens. C'est pour ça qu'on doit voir la chose collectivement. Mais si certains clubs mettent... Et je ne veux pas attaquer tout le temps FIFA et UEFA d'ailleurs, mais ils reçoivent une pression considérable, très agressive de la part des top clubs qui leur disent « Oh, moi je veux plus d'argent, donc tu vas développer ta compétition ». Donc on les oblige à ça aussi. Donc c'est pas... Tout le monde est responsable. Et c'est pour ça que nous, FIFA Pro Europe, l'UNFP, le syndicat français, l'AIC, le syndicat italien, mais également PFA, le syndicat anglais, nous avons déposé une plainte au tribunal de Bruxelles, le tribunal de l'entreprise, parce qu'on veut faire valoir les droits. Il y a des droits et on doit respecter ces droits. On veut aussi nous aider, j'allais dire, FIFA et UEFA à avoir un pouvoir de régulateur qu'ils ont perdu à cause de la puissance et la force et l'agressivité de ces top clubs. Ne nous trompons pas. Et là, on est en train de détruire, de ne pas respecter. Notre plainte, elle va sur quel sens? Elle va sur quelle volonté? De faire respecter les droits au congé annuel, la liberté de travail, mais également le droit à la négociation collective. Et ces top clubs, ces institutions si puissantes essayent de détourner tout ça, justement, pour les intérêts personnels des plus puissants. Et là, il faut qu'on soit vigilant. Et là, il faut que vous soyez vigilants aussi, parce que lorsqu'on parle de protéger le football, c'est ce qu'on est en train de vous expliquer. Ne vous trompez pas par ces manipulations politiques, publiques, qui sont en train d'essayer de se faire en termes de communication. Et moi, les médias qui sont là aujourd'hui, je remercie parce que j'en connais certains, des fois on est attaqué, ça fait partie de notre rôle, mais ne tombez pas dans ce piège-là parce que vous aussi, vous avez cette responsabilité-là. La liberté d'expression des médias, vous devez aussi challenger ça parce que vous en êtes conscient, vous le savez, vous êtes aussi inclusif dans le football. Et être inclusif, vous voyez ce qu'il y a et relayez-le, poussez-le, même si certains sont également des médias et dirigeants de clubs, mais c'est votre rôle, c'est votre responsabilité et c'est votre devoir professionnel, comme c'est notre devoir de représenter les joueurs. Qu'est-ce qu'on peut dire de plus? Pourquoi je n'ai pas parlé de la parole des joueurs? Ils s'expriment, ils nous le disent. Ils vous le disent aujourd'hui. Vous les avez eus, vous les avez entendus. Est-ce qu'on les écoute? Est-ce qu'on les respecte? Et est-ce qu'on les entend? Définitivement, jusqu'à aujourd'hui, la FIFA nous a répondu. Ou plutôt, nous a pas répondu. Elle ne souhaite pas entendre les acteurs principaux du football, les joueurs.
Thank you, David. Over there. Yes.
Hi, Julien Preto from Reuters. The question more for the representatives of the leagues more than FIFPro. You've been mentioning a lot FIFA, everything has been directed at FIFA, but you've barely mentioned UEFA, apart from Mr. Tebas a little bit. But if you look, I mean, this new format of the Champions League is also more games. The Nations League, I mean, obviously is more impact on the motivation of the players, on the physical, mental, strain of the players than, friendly matches would have had. So why is your complaint directed only at FIFA and not UEFA? If we see, let's say, very recently, if I take the case of Lille in France, they've played Real Madrid and let's say give or take 68 hours later they played Toulouse, and this is going to repeat itself with Atletico Madrid followed by the derby against Lens. 68 hours later they're going to play again. So why is everything directed at FIFA and not UEFA? Thank you.
I'll pick someone for you. Mathieu, on behalf of the leagues, do you want to respond?
Yes, so you're right, and I think a couple of us have mentioned the increasing number of the UEFA clubs competition being a challenge as well. I think to answer your question first, FIFA is responsible for the international match calendar. UEFA is not. UEFA organizes competitions, but those who have the regulatory power on the international match calendar, on the release of players, on the windows, that's FIFA. And that's why, first and foremost, why the complaint is addressed at FIFA. Second, I think it's fair to say that the relationship is a bit different in the sense that we have our discussions with UEFA and we have engaged with them when they came up with this idea of a new format. We don't always agree, and we will check with them how this new format will impact domestic leagues, and I agree with you that there will be consequences and maybe things will have to change. But at least there is a dialogue with UEFA, which is formalized from the league side at least by some representation of the UEFA Executive Committee for the leagues and in some committees. So if you like, the governance model is different. We have some representation and we use that. With FIFA, we have literally nothing.
We will close the press conference at this point also. The translators have stopped. Maybe is there any one last comment from the group?
I think there is a question over there.
We have still plenty questions. Okay. Last round of questions, please.
Should I ask in English or in Spanish? Because my question is for Mr. Tebas, but I don't see interpretation.
We won't have translation available anymore. So if you can probably pass the question just for the interviews afterwards, that would be great.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. We have now the legal briefing available in just a few minutes, and we have individual interviews with the participants at request. Thank you very much.
Just a picture together. You want to stand? You guys can stand.
Keeps on turning, we keep on searching for the moon. Let's take all of the close up, sink in the whitewash, diamond blue.